Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Asphalian's webinar, eSubmission Above and Beyond. Before starting, a couple of things to take into consideration. The webinar will last for 30 minutes. In case you have any questions, please submit them in the chat and we will reply them by email. We will also send you the presentation per email as well as the link to the recording shortly. And now it's my pleasure to introduce our speaker today from the Regulatory Operations eSubmissions Unit, Eduardo Gómez Casales, Regulatory Affairs Associate Manager. Eduardo has a double degree in pharmacy and biotechnology, as well as an MBA in pharma biotech. He's well experienced in international regulatory affairs and has developed expertise in all aspects of eSubmissions for drugs and other related products worldwide. In today's webinar, he will provide an overview of recent and upcoming changes in the electronic submissions landscape with a focus on the global adoption of the eCTD standard, the latest eCTD specifications, the update to eCTD 4.0, and more. Our colleague Blanca will talk briefly about Asphalian's regulatory operations services. Blanca, please.
Hi, everyone. We would like to start today's webinar reminding that this year in Asphalion we are celebrating our 25th anniversary, and also with an overview of our main e-submission services. Okay, our team performs publishing and submission activities mainly in eCTD format, but also in other formats still available. We provide comprehensive services, which include validation and quality control, submissions through different portals, as well as specific services for the FDA. We also take care of document formatting and compilation, adding, for example, the necessary hyperlinks or bookmarks. In addition, we support our clients with the software installation, validation, and update, and provide the necessary training for an optimal use. And finally, we also offer regulatory consulting and intelligence services. Our submissions team is composed of more than 10 experts delivering these services worldwide. Currently, we are managing over 60 active projects across Europe, the GCC region, and Switzerland, and more than 200 projects in the United States, Canada, and the UK. Each year, we generate over 2,000 sequences for our clients, covering more than 1,500 products. And now I would like to hand over to my colleague Eduardo, who will start presenting today's webinar.
Thank you, Lydia. Thank you, Blanca. Welcome, everyone. This is Eduardo Gomez speaking, Associate Manager in Asphalion Submission Unit, and today I will be the speaker for this webinar entitled eSubmission Above and Beyond. Today's agenda will be divided into 4 distinct topics: global implementation of the eCTD format, eCTD 4.0, update of eSubmission portals, and finally, other relevant updates. So let's begin with the global implementation of the eCTD format. I would like to start with the oldest update, which corresponds to South Africa. Since 1st November 2024, the use of Model 1 specifications version 3.1 and validation criteria version 3.1.1 has been mandatory. The key features of South Africa eCTD specifications version 3.1 are the following ones: the SAFRA application portal, the discontinued or redefined elements, several changes in the envelope, specific life cycle operations, and also its specifications. Now we move on to Australia. This one is quite substantial. On 31st October this year, it will be mandatory to comply with version 3.2 specifications and validation criteria, which bring with them a very significant change. It will be necessary to provide a detailed explanation justifying all validation warnings in an XML file included in your submission. In Europe, 1st December 2025 will mark the start of the version 8.2 validation criteria. Although these changes are minor compared to the current version 8.1, the most significant change is that it's no longer necessary to submit the sequence tracking table for certificate of suitability submissions to the EDQM. Ukraine continues with its policy of adopting European standards, and from now on, ECTD is an accepted format in this region, and will even be mandatory in 2026. The version 1.2 specifications and version 1.0 validation criteria adopted, although their own, are quite similar to the European ones. ECOWAS, the Economic Community of West African States, has already adopted the ECTD format, and it will become mandatory on 1st May 2026. Traveling to the Middle East, Kuwait has just adopted the specifications of the GCC countries, and only Yemen remains in non-ECTD format. Mandatory use has been established from 1st September 2025, and the deadline for baselines is 1st March 2026. Moving into Asia, Singapore has just launched its ECTD portal for test submissions, and is expected to begin accepted submissions in ECTD format in Q2 2026. Although this procedure will continue to be managed from the PRINCE application, submissions will be handled through a specific ECTD portal. In 2025, Canada has also made progress, updating its validation criteria to version 5.3 in May, with substantial changes to the description in the envelope, accepted file formats, changes to valid values in version 6, and a new rule that verifies the DTD version in the STF XML file. Another market that has successfully adopted the ECTD format is Tunisia, which already accepts ECTD submissions and will be making it in mandatory format in March 2026. And finally, the WHO, the World Health Organization, continues to make progress, now accepting submissions in ECTD format, which will be mandatory in 2026 for new products and in 2027 for legacy products. Well, after conducting a accurate review of ECTD format updates around the world, I am proud to say that Westphalian provides publishing and submission services, as well as their related services, to several clients in the following regions: Europe and its national agencies, UK, Switzerland, Ukraine, USA, Canada, South Africa, ECOWAS, GCC countries, Australia, Jordan, Thailand, Singapore, and for sure, the WHO. We are also actively working to prepare for the adoption of this format in Brazil, Egypt, and Tunisia. We now continue with the second topic of this webinar, the implementation of ECTD 4.0. We bring you here the latest update from the ICH on this matter, dated July 2025. As you may already know, there are only two regions where ECTD 4.0 has been implemented: the United States and Japan. With their technical pilots completed, the United States has been accepting submissions in this format since last year, and it will become mandatory in 2029. In the case of Japan, which has been accepting this submission since 2022, this format will become mandatory in 2026, next year. The next region that is most advanced in this regard is Europe, but I will discuss it in more detail later on. Brazil, Canada, Korea, Switzerland, and Australia have planned voluntary implementation in 2027, preceded by a pilot phase in 2026, except for Korea, which is still to be determined. A peculiar case is the Brazilian one, which intends to adopt eCTD 4.0 directly, without currently having implemented eCTD 3.2. You will find all this relevant information about this implementation on the websites of the respective health agencies referred to. As I mentioned previously, I would like to focus a little more on the eCTD 4.0 implementation pilot in Europe. Here, you can find the EMA official roadmap for its implementation. Once the main period for implementing the system changes and the European Implementation Guide and related documents update has been completed, the initial pilot for the centralized products was launched at the end of 2024. We are currently in phase 2 of the technical pilot, and in early August, the EMA published the first validation criteria for eCTD 4.0, focusing on centralized procedures. It is expected that these types of procedures will be able to be submitted in this new format in Q4 2025 and will become mandatory in 2027. For the remaining procedures, MRPs, PCPs, national procedures, more difficulties are being encountered, but it is expected that they will be able to be submitted in 2026 in 4.0 and on a mandatory basis yet to be determined. EMA has issued a press release stating that the validation criteria will be adapted in the future to also reflect the differences in these procedures in their criteria. The EMA is actively working through its specific working group to make eCTD 4.0 a reality in Europe very soon. For this technical pilot, EMA invited several marketing authorization holders, and together with vendors, they are working on different scenarios for these submissions. This scenario 1 is for the initial marketing authorization application, that it corresponds to sequence 1. EMA will prioritize for processing those marketing authorization holders who can resubmit sequence 1 for an existing already authorized centralized product, that it was previously created in eCTD 3.2.2 and now recreated or converted fully or partially in eCTD version 4.0. This scenario will be focused on the control vocabularies, different file formats, and multiple pack sizes and manufacturers. This scenario 2 is also for the initial marketing authorization application that corresponds to sequence 1, but is for a duplicate product sent in a scenario 1. This duplicate product can be a mock product, and this will facilitate early testing of group submissions functionality, which is planned for step 3. This scenario is focused on the document reuse and also for the different file formats. The scenario 3 is related to the responses or validation responses. that starts with sequence 2. It will be focused on the document lifecycle management, the update of keywords, priority numbers, and document titles, and also it will be focused on the regulatory activity. Finally, the scenario 4 will be about the post-authorization activities for different procedure types and multiple sequences related to the product sent in sequence 1. For this scenario, EMA will be focused on the document lifecycle management, also the date of keywords, priority numbers, and document titles, but also for the parallel regulatory activities. In Westphalian, we are extremely proud to have Daniel Lange among our ranks, recognized as a subject matter expert at the European Medicines Agency on behalf of Medicines for Europe, specializing in ECTD 4.0 and actively working in this working group. And now let's leave the world of the ECTD format and immerse ourselves in updates to some of the different eSubmission portals. Let's start with the United Kingdom and the latest news from the Regulatory Connect portal. During the spring 2026, Regulatory Connect portal will replace current MHRA submissions portal. The current usage of this Regulatory Connect portal is for tracking the status of applications and view live authorization details. For instance, product details, formulation, the packaging, or the product information documents. The MHRA has scheduled several webinars on this topic, and we bring you here a summary of the most relevant updates. Regulatory Connect will be the single place to make all human medicines regulatory submissions. The application form will be filled in electronically on the portal, quite similar to the PLM application form in Europe. The ECTD sequences that are submitted will have an automatic validation. There will be also an update of the organizational data. This portal will mean the single point of entry, and no submissions by FESP or other means will be accepted. Holders will also have the capability of visibility of payment status. It will become the main method of communication. For example, you will receive here or just request for information. And last, no more fragments will be accepted. The SMPC and package leaflet will be provided as a whole document within the ECTD. Now we cross the Atlantic Ocean and travel to the United States, specifically to look at how adverse events and medication error reports are submitted. FAERS is a database that contains all this information. On April 1st, 2026, ICH E2B R3 will be mandatory for safety reporting electronic transmission, changing the current ECTD format for INDs and ICH E2B R2 for NDAs, abbreviated NDAs, and biologic application. Submissions will be performed through either FDA, ESG, using database-to-database E2B transmission, or by Safety Reporting Portal, SRP. Now let's continue in the United States with the new FDA NextGen portal. Since April 14th, 2025, FDA NextGen Unified Submission Portal replaces legacy FDA web trader. With this portal, digital certificates are no longer needed. Letter of authorizations are also submitted through this unified portal, which simplifies the submission of our applications. Another substantial change is that acknowledgements are now also received by email. And now I will finish the portal updates with the PSUR submissions in Europe. From September 1st, 2025, marketing authorization holders will no longer be able to create PSUR submissions if the primary contact indicated in the PSUR submission form, the delivery file, does not have an IRIS account affiliated with the marketing authorization holder of this product. For centralized products, a person authorized for communication with the agency referring Section 243 of the application form. And for non-centralized products, the marketing authorization holder contact associated with the email address as indicated in the delivery file, the submission form, and not in the cover letter. We advise all the marketing authorization holders to keep their EMA account up to date with the relevant access in IRIS. You will need the role IRIS Industry Manager. If you have any concerns, Sphalion can guide you through this process. And now we conclude our webinar with some further updates. As a company based in Spain, I cannot end the webinar without mentioning a new development regarding allergen authorizations in Spain. We would like to inform you that a ministerial order has been issued stating that allergen-based immunotherapy and diagnostic medicines on the Spanish market that do not have marketing authorization or a special simplified registration must undergo a regularization procedure in order to remain on the market, submitting their authorization in eCTD format. The exception is for bulk allergens. The NIS format will also be permitted, as well as the eCTD. And last but not least, I would like to conclude the webinar with the latest topic that I wanted to share with you. The ICH is reviewing the M4 quality guideline that now is open to consultation. The scope of the revision is for all pharmaceutical drug substance and drug product, either chemical or biological, including antibody drug conjugates, vaccines, ATMPs, cell and gene therapies, tissue and gene products, or combination products. The purposes are the following ones: explaining and defining the organization of CMC information for Module 2 and Module 3, laying the foundation for the electronic data standards to support structured applications, alignment with other ICH guidelines, and also encouraging risks-based approaches. And what about the timelines? It's under public consultation since May 14th, 2025. Step 4 is expected by June 2027. Early adoption is not expected until 2028. This implementation will be linked to eCTD 4.0. and also this implementation may trigger regional and additional ICH guidelines updated. As you can see on this slide, the draft of the new M4 quality guideline establishes a radical change in the structure of the Module 2 and Module 3 of our applications. The quality information for materials of the medicinal product is organized within corresponding sections across Module 2.3 and Module 3.2. These sections are aligned with the roles of these components, including drug substance, drug intermediates, raw materials, starting materials, reference standards materials, excipients, impurities, drug products, product intermediates, packaged medicinal products, pharmaceutical products, and medical devices. These sections are further organized using the following structure: description, D, manufacturer, M, control, C, and storage, S. The description identifies the material and its key characteristics. The manufacturer outlines the production process and process controls. Control describes quality control measures such as specifications. Storage provides container closure system, stability, storage condition, and retest period shelf-life. This concludes today's webinar, eSubmission Above and Beyond. We hope you find it interesting, and of course, if you would like to explore any of these topics or others related to the regulatory world in greater depth, please do not hesitate to contact us. I bid farewell to all you now. Thank you for attending.
So that's a wrap. Thank you, Eduardo, for this fantastic webinar, and thank you to all the attendees. We hope you enjoy it. Remember that you can send your questions anytime at info@asphalion.com. Have a nice afternoon ahead, everyone. Bye-bye.